Don't do drugs. Sure, an acceptable argument. But what if all your favorite cartoon characters from the 80s, including Alf, Bugs Bunny, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, told you not to do drugs? Maybe then you wouldn't. Which was the plan back in 1990, when Roy E. Disney combined a bunch of properties from a bunch of studios to make Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. The production was simulcast on all major networks, and McDonald's spent over $2 million on the production to buy tapes for schools.
A message from the many faces of Ronald McDonald Children's Charities.
Love lifted me. Love lifted me. And nothing else would do.
How important was this? Even now, President Joe Biden held a House Judiciary meeting and opened by saying, "Today we will see unveiled here the newest weapon in our so-called war against drugs." Now, I'm not really crazy about that phrase, but in an effort to stem what is a serious problem facing this country. This new weapon is not a naval carrier group or a new prison. It isn't a $1 billion research program for cocaine-eating caterpillars. It is something far more powerful than any of those things. It is a cartoon, end quote. Can the cartoon all-stars of Winnie the Pooh, Garfield, and the very anti-high Michelangelo
Yeah, you're excellent just the way you are, without drugs.
possibly take on meth, crack, and marijuana? Well, President Bush was certainly hoping so.
Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue is the powerful story of a teenager dealing with drug and alcohol abuse.
And some of your favorite cartoon characters will help you understand how drugs and alcohol can ruin your life. So watch the program. Talk about it with your family.
And make the right decision. Stay away from drugs and alcohol.
This is the behind-the-scenes tale of Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue, with writer Dwayne Poole.
I teamed up with a guy named Tom Swale. We were both fairly new to the business and thought that our energies complemented one another. We then kind of quickly became sort of a couple of the premier writers of animation in town. Oddly, after we had teamed up on some live action things, we got all kinds of offers to come back and work in that world. So after we had done quite a bit of work for Aaron Spelling, who was a major producer here in town, for the live action field, producing some series like the Love Boat movies around the world and a series called Hotel and some other things. We were approached with this one particular project. It was obviously going to be a high profile thing. It was called, they had the title already. It was called Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. The conceit of it was that all the major animation houses would lend their characters to this project so that we could do what was an anti-drug campaign primarily. We jumped on board right away because of the chance to work with so many people that we had worked with in the past. Tom was also from the world of animation. We had done quite a bit of that together.
You know, for $10, I could score us some crack.
Oh yeah, crack. Now we're talking.
You've got money, Michael.
But crack, that's serious stuff.
Come on, Michael. You're not gonna chicken out on your friends, are you?
It's Roy E. Disney. He was the nephew, as I understand, of Walt. He was producing all the major animation studios, as I mentioned, were involved, and it was just too good a piece to pass up. I mean, we were very happy in the live action world, but this chance to do something so major jumped out of both of us, and we couldn't say no.
You know, kid, you don't look so good. What's this? A joint?
Because there were so many companies involved, we were a little leery about that, and we just said we'd like to go away on our own with no supervision. Just let us come up with a story, and we'll present it, and then we'll deal with the notes afterward. And we'd seen so many. Keep in mind, this is back in 1990, so it was a pretty naive time by today's standards. But back then there had been so many other campaigns, so many anti-drug campaigns that we felt just weren't really getting to the kids, that were presented in a way that the kids would not understand or relate to. And so we picked this idea of a young animated kid who's experimenting with drugs and wanted to do it as realistically as the companies and the networks would allow at that time. We put our script together, or not our script, but our story together, and then it had to be passed by each company, of course. I think the trickiest part of this, because everyone was pretty on board with doing this realistically and not trying to gloss over the situation. The biggest problem was which characters each company would allow. Disney was probably the most concerned about that, even though Roy was at the head of all this. We really couldn't use the major characters. They didn't want, for example, Mickey Mouse or some of the other characters to appear in this. So we got their minor characters, like Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and so on. But each house kind of presented us with who they would allow us to use, and so a lot of our story was tailored to those characters. So, for example, Bugs Bunny from Warner Brothers, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Baby Kermit, and so on, and the Smurfs from Hanna-Barbera. We got a list of the characters that we were able to use, and it's almost like writing a movie where you're given the cast and you have to tailor the story to them. That ultimately worked out pretty well. We had a couple bumps along the way, but by and large, they were all very supportive. And what we wound up with is what you've got there.
What's all this for? Either someone's conducting a major chemistry experiment, or this is a serious no-no.
Toto, something tells me we're not in cartoon territory anymore.
What's that funny smell? I hate to suggest this, but my guess would be marijuana, an unlawful substance used to experience artificial highs.
We had seen other drug specials that were just top to bottom lectures to the kids, and we knew that they wouldn't listen to that. So we tried to sneak these things in clever ways, get the information across to the kids without them feeling preached to. To the major part of this, I think we were successful. I know looking back, it doesn't perhaps seem that way, but again, it's hard to look at it through 2020 eyes when it was 30 years ago. It was daring for its time. As I say, it may seem really naive in retrospect, but it was at the time very daring. We got a lot of support from the networks, as you probably know. All the majors, ABC, CBS, NBC, and then Fox, and most independent stations and cablers agreed to show it at the same time. So because it was simulcast, and there was, I understand that this is why, because it was simulcast, there was nothing else that the kids could pretty much tune to at that time on Saturday. But we wound up getting, I think, one of the highest ratings and shares in the history of broadcast. We got a 32 rating, which was enormous back then, and a 63 share, which is just unheard of these days when when those numbers are usually in the single digits for shows, and they're very happy with that. It did what we had hoped it would do. Copies of it on VHS back then were handed out to all the schools, to libraries. It went around the world. It got a whole lot of attention. One of the things that surprised me in retrospect, because I've been asked about this a couple times in the past couple of years, as I revisited it, I'm like you, I thought, well, this was actually more fun than I remember it being. It's strange, but it is fun. And the surprise to me was that the big musical number in the piece, that Wonderful Ways to Say No, was written by Menken and Ashman, who wrote the score of Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Hercules, all that sort of thing. Little Shop of Horrors. So I actually, in retrospect, discovered that I had written a sort of musical with two major names.
Well, you look like three fine lads. You know, I might have something here you'd like to try. Something to make you feel real good.
There's a million wild and wonderful ways to say no. No thanks. No way.
Better learn a few and take 'em wherever you go.
No thanks, no sir.
If your pal says let's get high,
here's a practical reply.
Go ahead, let fly, spit right in his eye and say no.
There's a million international ways to say no.
Those drugs are so boring.
All around the world, the smart guys are giving up dope.
I'm intrigued for football.
In Berlin, they just say no.
And they tell me that works fine. But the bottom line's for showing you trying to say no. Now you could say beat it, get lost, get out of my face with that stuff.
But that could be tactless. You may prefer cool. Like this.
I'll get you guys later, okay?
I've got too much homework. It's rough.
I'm late for my baseball game and I'll miss my ride.
My kid sister needs me.
A hamster died.
Gotta hurry home.
There's no time to kill, so I'll catch you later. Like that I will.
There's a million wild and wonderful ways to say no.
Guess I'm allergic.
And good excuse is something you never outgrow.
It's bad for my complexion.
When your pal say, let's get wrecked.
Muster up your self-respect.
Go on, push, eject, protect yourself, get up and go. Be the first one on your block to say.
Yeah, forget it, Doc.
Try a couple of those wonderful ways to say no. Push up the gut one. There's million zillion wonderful ways to say no. Step back, now demonstrate. There's million zillion wonderful ways to say
What a nightmare.
I just remember that even though we had permission to use certain characters, as we got into the script, it was a case of, Kermit wouldn't say that, or we can't let Huey, Dewey, Louie do that, or there were just certain things, and I'm making up those specifics because I don't recall the instances right now, but we did have some studio involvement in terms of being picky about language or actions in that context. Again, it was putting their bread and butter characters into a drug special and into a drug situation. So you can understand why they wouldn't give us, Mickey Mouse, for example. But the characters that the studios did offer up had to be carefully managed through this. There was less of that than I had expected, but there was still enough that it became a bumpy road here and there. But after a few drafts, we got a draft that everyone loved, and it went off to be animated. Over the years, I've done so much that I'm proud of, but this is like one project that keeps cropping up in the most interesting places. I'll be in a conversation with network executives or movie executives or whoever that I wouldn't imagine even knew about this, and they'll see that on my resume and say, "Oh, tell us about this. We remember that vividly." So I guess a lot of people saw it and a lot of people remember it. After all these years, is that here I've done so many things that I'm so proud of, like the legendary actress Katharine Hepburn. I wrote and produced her last two screen appearances, and I've worked with Johnny Depp and George Clooney and all these. But the one thing that keeps coming up is Cartoon All Stars to the Rescue. It's just it just kills me in a good way. It tickles me. I love it.
And remember all those wonderful ways to say no.
And as you get taller, you'll see
that stronger and stronger you'll be.
That's how the world works, kid.
That's how it's designed.
You'll even outgrow us one day. Forget that you know us, you may.
But promise you'll keep what we say in the back of your mind.
When the going gets rough, you'll need someone to help you pull through. Well, you'll always have someone. Guess what, kid? That someone is you.
But we hope that even so.